Well, once again, welcome to our strategic planning session today. Can you guys believe it? You're at your fifth session. Oh my gosh. Wow. Next time we're together, we'll be closing out. Thank you for that. Wait a minute. I just want to make sure we all uplift that to Brandlin. Last day. Wow. Wow. Best wishes to you. I just wanted to make sure we all had a minute to read that, to send you something, Brandon. So today, session will be on strategic planning. So again, welcome. If we can move to our agenda so we can tell you what we have in store for you today. So as you can see, it's pretty jam-packed as usual with our topics for today. Dr. Palmer will, as she always does, go through each in a swift and detailed way that gets you on time at 12:30. I'm always amazed at how quickly and thoroughly she moves through the information. One of the things I would like to ask the group, if one of you wouldn't mind, would anyone be willing to give a high-level view of a strategic plan or their strategic plan? Probably should have asked you this last week. Sorry. But if anyone has it available, if they wouldn't mind sharing it, we'd appreciate it. And if you will, just put it in the chat or raise your hand. If you have to pull it off the shelf where to just look at it quickly and share it, we'd be glad. And it's just a high level view, just for us to show as an example. So if anyone's willing to do that, and we'll remind you again, this will be after the icebreaker today. So if you just be thinking about that in terms of who's willing to share their strategic plan with us, would be great. Yes, Rebecca, you want to talk to the interpretation today? I think we do have an interpreter online, right?
Yes, we do. I know they may be, a lot of the folks at Sensole were affected by Helene. So, looks like we just lost our translator. I don't know what happened to her. So we'll keep an eye on the waiting room, Catherine, and hopefully she'll rejoin us. I don't know if the internet is an issue still out there for a lot of folks. So,
Catherine, are you okay with being on with us today without it, or I'm trying to look for you? Catherine?
She said, okay, thanks.
Did she? Okay.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye out for her. I don't know. She was on earlier, but we lost her. So we'll see. Hopefully she'll come back on soon.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's keep moving. So again, if you even have a link, like it says on the link to share, and you can just talk it through with us, would be great. We'd appreciate that. This goes along the theme of our topic today. So with that, let's move on into our icebreaker and let's kick it off, Rebecca.
Rebecca, can I have a moment before you jump into
Yeah,
it?
please do.
Yes. All right, great. Can we go back to the gallery view just for a minute? Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing super fantastic. That's my word for this week, super fantastic. And I did look it up. And super fantastic can have a hyphen or not have a hyphen. So I am super fantastic this week. I hope you are. Where are my coffee drinkers? And that's not to exclude the tea drinkers and the soft drink drinkers and so on and so forth. But good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to you all. We hope that you are safe and that all of the folks that you love and care about are safe. And should they have had a horrific experience with all the weather conditions in our state, we pray they will be able to bounce back and recover and to regroup. I've been watching. I'm in Greensboro, And I've just been, like most of you, probably just checking out the news and seeing all these images, and my heart just goes out to all of the folks who have to regroup after this, and not just in North Carolina, but around the country. So I say we lift them up, keep them lifted up, and encourage all of those around you who might be experiencing some negativity as it relates to the storm. So as Lisa mentioned, we are in session 4, right?
Yes,
So we are over the, is it called, Wednesday is called Hump Day, right? So I guess last week would have been our hump session. That was meant to be funny, but okay. At any rate, as we kind of move into our topic today, Rebecca is going to kick us off with an icebreaker. But what I would like to do is to just get just a sense of where we all are in terms of all of the topics that we've discussed up to this point. So as you know, we have covered a lot of territory. And we have been engaged in some pretty lively discussions and question and answers related to the big topic team, which is board governance and oversight. That's always a topic and a focus that gets a lot of attention and energy. And so I would like for you to just kind of give me an idea. If you could identify one thing that we have shared with you through these sessions over the past 3 weeks, one thing that you would say has been the most useful. So give that like a 30-second thought. The most useful, the most useful. And if you would just put that in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. That's okay too, if you'd like to give voice to your feedback. So far, what's been the most useful out of all that we have covered, all the territory that we've covered, the most useful? Let's see. Team, we've got the popcorn that's popping off in the chat. In terms of the most useful. The self-assessment, build, thrive, and sustain. I see the self-assessment again. Assessment tool, I see that again. I might be missing something. Management conditions. Oh, breakout groups. Okay. Board responsibilities. Looks like the self-assessments are really they're that particular item is getting a lot of hits. Thank you. Thank you. And I think I saw the workbook, maybe. I did see that come up. Thank you. So as we move into thank you for sharing. Thank you all. And good morning again. We're going to jump right into our work. We are in store for a pretty comprehensive look at our topic of strategic planning today. And to get us started, I'm gonna pass it over to Rebecca, and she's gonna engage us in a icebreaker.
Thanks, Dr. Palmer. So in honor of Spooky Month, here we are, 1st of October. We wanted to kick us off with a little icebreaker that will lead us into our session on strategic planning. each of you, I'll ask real quick, Leslie, has our interpreter come back through? Re-entered the chat.
Not yet.
Okay, if she does come back on at any point, will you let me know?
Yeah, will do.
Okay, thanks. So I'm asking because we have been intending to have one of the breakout rooms happen in the main room that would be bilingual. And so if we have our interpreter, we would do that with a group of EDs, but we'll continue going forward as we have until that person comes back with us to join us. But I want you all to imagine that you're alone in a dark cabin, similar to the one that you see on your screen. And you're there with your group. Your group is your breakout group, right? And all you have is one match. And we're asking you all to, as a group, to come up with a consensus around which you will light first. The match is not your answer. The match is what you have to light one of these items with. Would you be lighting first an oil lamp, the fireplace, or a candle? Those are your three options: an oil lamp, a fireplace, or a candle. Those are the things that you have in your cabin to light. Which one are you going, as a group, to reach consensus, which one are you going to light first? And I'll put this in the breakout room chat so you all can remember and recall which of those items you might want to pick. But your goal as a group is just to sort of say hello, talk it through, decide which you're going to light first, and then we'll come back for a report back to the group. Oh, don't put it in the chat yet. Delano knew immediately. But you're going to do that in your breakout rooms, and we're going to let you select your breakout rooms based on your role like we have in the past. That's okay. No worries. So I'm going to go ahead and open up all these rooms, and I'll put this question in the chat. Oh, looks like our interpreter is back. Let's go ahead and admit her first. There we go. So with that, I think what we'll do is we'll have one bilingual ED group here in the main room in the gallery. So we need 5 of you, and one of those will be obviously our interpreter. But if you'll raise your hand, if you're an ED that will plan to stay here in the main room for the bilingual group. I need 5 of you to raise your hands. And then we'll open them up. Catherine, you're going to stay here in the main room. Can we have a couple more EDs join? It's planned to stay here in the main room. I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, there we go. Okay, Alejandro, Daniela, maybe a couple more, maybe 2 more. All right, Ashley, gracias. All right, we'll go ahead and open up the rooms. For those of you that are staying in the main room, make sure you've selected which language you prefer to hear in. Down in the more, you'll see interpretation, and like I just did, I selected English. So open up the rooms. You're alone in a dark cabin. All you have is one match. For your group, you need to decide which of the following you will light first: an oil lamp, a fireplace, or the candle. Okay.
Daniela, I see your hand up. Oh,
See what's on the break and the messages here. There we go. Does anyone need help getting into?
Yes, it's not, the box didn't pop up on my screen.
Okay, Let's go back here. Which room would you like to go to?
The ED room.
ED, okay. All right, let me put you in there. Anyone else?
Yeah, I didn't get a box.
Okay, sorry about that, Anne. I don't know what happened. Which room would you like to be in?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. All right, you're all set. Who else? I know we have some folks staying here in the main room for bilingual. I still see some folks here that are not in a room. Let me know if you need to be ushered off in
If I
any
could get
way.
to the ED room, that would be helpful, please.
Okay,
Eric?
Eric, sure
Yep.
thing.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you. Juliana, if you'll work here in the main room to do interpretation, that would be great.
Good morning. Hi, this is Shayna with Urban Ministries. I need a room, please.
Okay. Do you have a preference on the role?
So I'm development director, but I also am in charge of marketing. So either one.
Okay. I might put you over in finance. We got 2 people in there, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca, how many breakout rooms do we have?
We have 7 plus this
Okay.
one, which is the main room.
Okay, so 8. Okay, thank you.
Okay. For this group here, for your breakout, I've got the question here that I'll put in the chat, and you can feel free to discuss. And I'm hoping that Juliana, our interpreter, can help us with that. Juliana, if you'll give us a thumbs up and let us know that you're ready to go.
Probando. ¿Me escuchan? ¿En español? Bueno, entonces yo puedo empezar aprovechando y agradeciendo que está la interpretación. Yo creería que si yo estoy sola en una cabaña, yo escogería la fogata o algo que me permita tener fuego, porque siento que de alguna manera me va a permitir estar calientita. Y también pienso que si tengo la opción luego de hacer algo o cocinar algo, tal vez puede tener como varias funciones. Eso sería lo que yo escogería. ¿Alguien más?
I think I would also choose the fireplace. It feels like warmth and abundance of fire would be a priority, and the fireplace is the best option. And I feel like you can then light other things from the fireplace. So fireplace would be my vote also.
I was thinking about it a little bit differently. I was like, I have one match, and that one match might not light up that fire right away, and that's the only thing I have. So what can I match first to keep me the light, and then use that to light up the other things? So I was thinking between I can't remember how easy it is to light up an oil lamp. So I was like, it's gonna be either the candle or an oil lamp. Maybe the candle because it's easier. But if the oil lamp is the easiest among them all, I might start there just because if there's some wind happening, I don't want my one candle to also get blown off. So yeah, I'm between the oil lamp and candle if someone else can help with decide between those two.
Have to agree with Daniela. I was thinking the oil lamp because typically they have the glass dome over them to protect that one single flame and just use it to light the fireplace. And then at that point, I wouldn't need the oil lamp to stay on. But yeah, same thing. Also, this is the premise for all horror movies in which all people of color get killed first. So there's no way you would catch me in that cabin.
Gracias, Karina. Gracias a todos. Yeah, pues ahí dice que vas a encender primero. Y también quiero decir que lo más importante es que creo que estás solo en un lugar muy lejos, tal vez. Entonces, tal vez sí sería eh, the oil lamp y después lo demás. um, porque sí, a veces se puede apagar lo demás, ¿no? Entonces, eso es lo que yo escogería. Gracias.
It's like we have some folks coming back from our breakout rooms. Hopefully everyone has reached consensus as a group. This group may, here in the main room, may have to still reach consensus. So continue to talk if you would like to for the next minute.
I guess the question goes back to the people who say the fire or fireplace. Do you have any change in hearts, or what do you guys think?
Daniela, I liked your the logic that you used. So I would probably defer to Alejandro's answer, and I believe Corinda's answer as well. But Daniela, you made me think a little differently. Thank you.
Sí, definitivamente, Daniel.
Okay, everyone's been given 60 seconds. Some folks may exit out and come back to the main room here. I left it recording that whole time, so whoever listens to the recording will get to hear our group here deliberate and reach consensus. All right, a few more seconds for everybody to join back. Right, we are back. And we will, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Palmer.
Right. So we want to just have a little bit of a discussion. There are a couple questions we want to pose as we kind of process and connect the dots between the exercise and our topic today. So there are two things that we would like for you to think about. And team, if we could pop up slide 8, that would be great. So there are a couple things we want you to think about in terms of the just kind of a reflection of what it is that you came up with in terms of what would you like first. And so as we're talking about that, kind of jot down these two questions. What was the process of building consensus like? So what was that all about? What did it look like, feel like, sound like? And how did you go about doing that? And then we're going to have a discussion around how this process of reaching consensus and building consensus, how that process relates to our topic today. So if you would just jot down those last two questions, that would be great. And so as far as the exercise goes, the goal was, or the task was to reach consensus around which of the following items would you like first: the oil lamp, the fireplace, or a candle. And so if you've jotted those two questions down, then group, we can go back to gallery. Thank you. So what did you like first? And I think there were about 7, 8 breakouts. So if we could hear just from a couple, and you can unmute yourself if you want to be that one or that 2 or that 3 folks that respond back. So which did you like first? That's the first question that we're going to focus on. Which did you like first? And how did you reach consensus? Which did you like first, and how did you reach consensus?
Okay, I'll go. I'm Cece.
Okay.
From Cumberland Choral Arts. There were 7 of us in the room. The first thing that happened was I said, I'm not the moderator, somebody else speak up, and they did. And generally the voting was in favor of lighting the fireplace first, thinking that would provide the most light and the most warmth. And there was an argument for lighting the oil lamp first and using it as a transportable source of light. So you could look around the cabin and see if there's other resources and maybe expand the light from there. But ultimately the vote was 6 for the fireplace and 1 for the oil lamp. And that was our consensus.
Okay. So the fireplace won out, right? And I think I heard you in your sharing, you talked about how one of you, namely yourself, decided, I'm not leading. I'm not gonna mod, someone else can do that. The other was you talked about other resources and how other resources might be able to help in this case. And then it sounds like there was a little bit of agreement, disagreement, and then we got to where we landed, which was the fireplace. Is that fair?
Yeah, no fights broke out, but there was some discussion. And then, the oil lamp person decided it wasn't worth arguing or fighting or wasting any calories on if everybody else was in agreement about the fireplace.
All right.
Well, I'll go
Thank
next.
you.
our group, we decided after a lot of discussion to go with the oil lamp because the oil lamp we felt would be the safest because the oil would actually help keep the fire burning longer, and it would also be in a glass container, but we could then light the candle from there and then have enough fire to be able to light the fireplace. So we felt that that would be the best and safest situation.
Okay.
And then to that, if I can add, I was also in Dr. Hodges's group. Then we also talked about the risk of lighting the oil lamp and then how to mitigate that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. And so, I heard two or three things here. One is about safety. And so that was a variable for this group. The risk factor, you know, depending upon which one we choose, what kind of risk does that put into play for us and how do we mitigate that? And then utilizing the oil lamp as a tool to use the other two sources. That kind of stands out to me for your group. And if I could just hear one more.
I can chime in. I think a part of my initial conversation, especially for me, is like I just had additional questions. So, because those additional questions kind of can lead you to, you know, different choices. Like questions such as, does the lamp have oil in it? Is there firewood do we have firewood in the fireplace? You know, is it hot or is it cold? Because, you know, we had, a brief conversation that if it's not cold, I don't want to readily start a fireplace right now if I don't need the heat from it, right? Not just for a light source. So different things like that. And then we individually kind of voted. And then we recalled that we were supposed to come up with a consensus. So then we just after we shared, we just kind of voted, and majority won out, and we chose the oil lamp. So.
All right. Thank you, Melva, for sharing that. So a couple things I heard here was context. You know, like so before we choose something, let's think about context. And so I get that whole contextual analysis piece before you decide on what the goal is going to be or before you decide on what the tool is going to be. And then the limitations of each of the three options, kind of thinking about, well, what's the most limiting potentially? And then just write out, let's just vote now, you know, after posing questions. And in the strategic planning process, there are definitely lots of questions that we are answering as we move along. So we had 2 for the oil lamp, and then we had 1 for the fireplace. Did any of the other groups choose the candle? Okay. All right. So as we think about the choices that that each of the groups made that shared, I do want us to just kind of take a minute to kind of think about what all the different steps are in the strategic planning process. I don't know if we had anyone, before I go there, I don't know if we had anyone, Lisa and Rebecca, I think, or one or the other or both asked if we had 1 or 2 volunteers who have access to your strategic plan that you can share electronically. If you don't mind volunteering and doing that, I don't need it right this second, but in a couple minutes, we'd like for you to just highlight your plan. So do we have any volunteers? Again, if not something you have to go look up, but if you have easy access to your strategic plan, like is it posted on your website or are you the person that kind of helps to monitor it and you just happen to have it? If you do, we'd like to share a couple of those, and just raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we will go there in just a minute. Team, can we go to slide 5? So here is our agenda for today, in terms of kind of what our focus is going to be. We are going to work through these touch points as it relates to strategic planning, our topic. So we're going to spend some time with just kind of how to get prepped and geared up for the strategic planning process. And we're going to talk about and learn about how a needs assessment, how asset mapping, and how the results of a capacity assessment can help us as we determine what the content will be in a strategic plan. So we're going to focus on that. We're also going to just touch a little bit on kind of the mission and the vision of your nonprofit, and how we work to confirm that as it relates to the strategic plan as well. Because typically what you will see in the final compilation of a strategic plan is the mission and vision is typically in that document. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to do some hands-on work related to goal setting and crafting objectives that go into a strategic plan. So we're going to facilitate a process for that. We're going to do some hands-on work related to a SWOT analysis, or identifying, where our strengths are, or where our weaknesses are, where our opportunities are, and where our threats are. Something you want to note about a SWOT analysis is we actually borrow from the business sector when it comes to utilizing a SWOT analysis. So we're gonna learn about that and do some hands-on work. And then the writing of the plan, the implementing the plan, and monitoring and tracking progress. We're going to share some information about those 3 touch points. Less of hands-on there, but more of just informing you of what takes place as it relates to those. And then the last touch point will be related to working through the life cycle of the plan, evaluating what has occurred, and then just kind of talking through the revision as you get to the end of the cycle of a particular plan. And so quite a bit for us to work through today. Each of these touch points or components of the process builds on the other. And so we'll be kind of building this out as we go along. And so this is going to be our focus for today. We've got quite a few kind of breaks built in. We have breakouts built in. We have hands-on work that you'll do as well. And so this is the lay of the land, if you will, for the day. And so we can go back to gallery. And I don't know if we had 1 or 2 folks that can share their plan if they actually have it electronically. Any takers? So we'll, Lisa and Rebecca, we will pop up the Passage Home strategic plan. Well, let me ask this question. How many of your organizations actually have a strategic plan currently that's current? How many have one? Thomas has one. Okay. Calvin, Blair, okay. Meredith, great, okay. Abby, okay. Okay, all right. So we've got a few, and then we've got a couple of comments in the chat where folks are working on their strategic plan. Let me pose this question. How many of us have never participated in a strategic planning process? So we've actually not done this. You can raise your hand, or that would be great. That way I can see it a lot easier if you just raise your hand. So you've never participated in a strategic planning process. So just a few of those, okay? Just a few, all right.
Dr. Palmer, I think Melvin kindly shared his.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. Then we'll go to ours. We'll go to the example that we have prepared for our work. Do we want to share?
So you don't want that one open. You want to open up the example that we have to show.
Yes, I was reading his message here. So Melvin, is this one complete or not? Just for clarification. So
Yes,
is it
ma'am.
complete? It
Yes,
is
ma'am.
complete. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
it's a complete version of it. I'm just saying it's not, we have like a detailed Excel sheet of it as well, but this is like the Word document with the overarching kind of goals, high level. Just the things that we're working on in general. We're in the middle of it, so it goes to 2026.
Okay. All right. So we'll share ours, and then we'll pop up what you have. So team, we'll go to Passage Homes first, and then we'll do the others. What I will say is that I do think there's a readiness for strategic planning that organizations should aspire to kind of move towards. And so, you know, folks sometimes think, well, we have to have a strategic plan, or we're doing something wrong, or not necessarily. I do think there is a readiness for going into this process, because two things it requires: time and a little bit of money. And so, needing that, and then also the readiness of your board, your staff, yourself, if you are the executive director. And we're going to walk through that readiness piece as well. But posing the question doesn't necessarily, I don't want that to imply that there's something wrong if you don't have a strategic plan. Organizations really do have to work to get to that place. But also, it could be that your organization is 100 years old, right? And it might have had strategic plans in the past, and it may not necessarily have a plan that is being utilized at the present time. So I don't want to imply that there's something significantly wrong if we don't have a formal strategic plan in place. There are different ways that we can prioritize, establish goals, et cetera. And it may not necessarily be packaged in a full-blown strategic plan. And so, Lisa, do you want to share a little bit about this plan and your participation in this process for Passage Home?
Sure.
Thank you.
Again, going through this is probably not updated as we would like, but it shows the overall components of a strategic plan that that Passage Home had gone through. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this organization. I spent 25 years of my career there with Passage Home. So I had a small part with the executive director forming this strategic plan. So as we scroll through, again, you have an overall executive summary that is written for it. And then you have which I also saw when I compared it quickly to Melvin's, you have your mission, values, all listed there. And that's something that you come up as a group. Again, this was very participatory with the board of directors that work with this. We also work with the staff, because again, the staff should be on board with helping you, well, they should be on board with doing your mission and your values. In terms of that piece of it. We've also done it with the center as well, in terms of us coming together with the board and the staff to making sure that strategic plan lines up with our goals. You have in here your impact in terms of what you're looking for, as Leslie's scrolling through, just to give you highlights. At the time, and I believe still is, real estate was a very important piece of what Passage Home has as part of its portfolio. So we have goals in reference to what they expected to do with that section of the agency, strategies to reach it, and again, what the impact will be. So again, in the strategic plan, just as at the center or even within your organizations, if you have certain departments and areas and goals and projects you're working on, that should be within your strategic plan in terms of what you're hoping to come out from it. We have a finance area that talks about what the goal of finance strategies. Again, this is a template of information. You may not have all of these and it's fine, but just want to show you that for each area of your organization, you should have some kind of goals, strategies to reach those goals. An evaluation method is included within reach. Slow down, Leslie, you're going a little fast. It's fine. Keep going. I'm there. I'm with you. It's like, woo. Obviously, you should have a section for your board development. The board should also be a big component comprising this section of it, in terms of what are your strategies for forming, how are your committees work, what are the members doing, what is the impact of the board. Again, as you can see, the headers are the same, just different content depending on what you're reporting on. And again, an evaluation metric attached to each of that section as well. So as she goes through, you can see, and I don't have to keep, each one will have a different section in terms of how the organization is broken down and what the goals are. So again, your strategic plan may not be this long. It depends, again, what strategy you have within your organization to build it. And I think as you go through, Leslie, I think, is that the end of it? I thought there was a closure or a summary. No. Okay. So pretty much, as you can see, that's the full strategic plan for this particular organization. Again, just a simple template. And again, you can just fill it in as you see necessary for your organization. Now, as we, if we look at Melvin's, his may be broken out similarly, and we can see how we compare to show you that all strategic plans do not have to look the same. Is this example included in the 100-page download workshop I got this morning? I don't think it is. I think this is separate, but we can send you this template as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Right.
what ministries up here, Dr. Coleman.
Yep, this is Melvin's, I believe. Melvin, is this yours?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You want to just kind of talk us through what we're looking at? And right off the bat, what I will say, there's some similarities between what we see here and Passage Home. So go right ahead, Melvin. We just want to do the highlights. You don't have to give us detail.
No worries. So this is our strategic plan coming out of COVID. Of course, we had an executive change as well. So this is like our first kind of soiree into strategic planning with a new executive. So we definitely engaged staff on the program side, as well as our board, to actually have a facilitated conversation around our strategic plan, which led us to changing our mission. But we changed our mission and our vision. Our values stayed the same though. Then overall, you see the goals under that. These are kind of the 4 basic kind of areas that we kind of came up with that we wanted to work on. We didn't want it to make it too expensive, having new leadership, just wanted to make sure that we're level set and just kind of focuses around this idea of space planning for where we're gonna do programs at, as well as development in terms of diversifying our development base, strategic growth, coming out of COVID in terms of program size and number of people attending things, just trying to have strategies to kind of grow those, and then organizational development. So, working on things like our technology, as well as other things we can use to better serve the people we're trying to serve. I think during COVID, kind of got off track a bit in terms of trying to meet the needs of the moment, but wanting to kind of level set as well as update processes and procedures to help us continue to work with the families and the individuals that we're trying to serve. So it's like high level. And there is an additional document. That's what I was saying in the chat. There's an additional document so this is kind of the overview. That's like an Excel document with like quarter, this is quarter one, this is what we're doing, as well as some additional kind of notes that we review kind of on a regular basis. So
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing the Passage Home Plan. I do believe that it's important to mention the formatting and the layout and the way the plan is packaged is oftentimes just uniquely different from one nonprofit organization to the next. So depending upon the resources you have available has a lot to do with how the plan is put together. And then also just the tracking and the monitoring is decided by the nonprofit organizations. What I will say is that as you're trying to determine how your plan will be packaged, just keep in mind that it is different for each organization. And when you go through the strategic planning process, oftentimes that implementation, individual work plan, and individual monitoring and tracking progress is something that the team does, either the strategic planning committee, if you're fortunate enough to have one in place, which is oftentimes a combination of staff and board and other human resources that you might want to utilize. And so just know that if you were to go out there and just do a search and look at different examples, the plans come together quite differently depending upon what's available to the agency. If we could go back to gallery view, and if you could grab your workbook. So what I want to do now is I want to just kind of have you kind of touch these pages to kind of just know what is at your disposal. And then we're going to refer back to each of these parts of the workbook as we go along. So session 4 is in the middle of your workbook. Page 57 is where we're going. When you get the wraparound slide deck, there's a slide that has each of those touch points and the page numbers. So, but I want to just kind of walk you through what you have at your disposal. So in terms of startup, pages 57 through 62, you know what, team, can you pop up slide 12? That might help everybody. So while I'm saying this is a little bit. Thank you all for just going back and forth this morning with this gallery view. And I like the gallery view, prefer gallery view. So, but if you could put, there we go. So just to kind of help you to know what's in your workbook and what you have at your disposal. So in your workbook, pages 57 through 62, if you have some paper clips nearby, you can also clip these pages together too. And as we go through, it might be a little easier to get to it. But startup is, we're going to focus on pages 57 through 62. There's a section on preparing to plan. That's pages 63 through 67. Needs assessment, that's page 68 through 81. Asset mapping is page 82 to 83. There's a page that outlines what capacity is, what capacity assessment means, and what capacity building means. And we actually referred to this page in the very first session, page 84. Page 85, mission, page 86, vision. And then there's the goal setting and objective section, that's 87 through 92. And then the SWOT, pages 93 through 95. Writing the plan, 96 and 97, implementing the plan, page 98, monitoring and tracking, page 99, and then evaluation and revision is page 100. And so the other thing you want to keep in mind is how, or consider, is how you can infuse equity, diversity, and inclusion as you are working through the process. And so that may be unique and different for every organization. If you have your phone nearby, you can take a quick picture of this if you want to, and you've got the actual sections and the page numbers. And that way that'll help you keep up as we're working through our session today. And also, we are going to be adding some documents to the chat as we work along too. There are some resources that we're going to use that are not necessarily in the workbook. So keep that in mind. Let's see. I'm trying to think. There's a question in the chat. Can you just bring your voice to it? What's your question?
Is that my question? It's Shelley about the values.
Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
So I noticed that in both of the samples that were shown, they have value, they have their mission, vision, and values. And we did, before I was ED, we had a strategic planning session with a outside consultant, and the values wasn't discussed. And so we did the mission and vision, which was part of where we started. So I didn't know if that's something that, so we don't have any values, is what I'm trying to say, on the start of our strategic plan. Is that something we should work on as well? I just didn't know.
That's a choice. That's a choice. Whenever, if you notice with some organizations, well, more commonly, you're going to see a mission and vision, but some organizations will have what you call core values or values. They might have principles for practice. They might have, kind of some grounding principles that they want to lift up. That is not an expectation or a requirement, but there are some organizations who adopt those as well.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And if we could go back to gallery view, it is 10:31. So we're going to take a break. Rebecca, remind me of how much time. I think it's 10 minutes, but I think I took one of the minutes already. So maybe it's 9 minutes or 8.
Let's do a 9-minute break. That sounds great, actually.
All right. So we'll come back at 10:40 and we will jump into startup. We'll get going.
Thank you, everyone.
Hope everyone was able to really take a break. We're going to jump right into our work for today, and we've got quite a bit to cover. So if you would turn with me in your workbook to page 57. We always start off this particular training on this management function. We always started off with taking a look at what a strategic plan looks like and honing in on what some of those key parts of a strategic plan are, just so that we all kind of have a visual of what it is we're working towards, keeping in mind that the layout and format is different for each nonprofit organization. Our strategic planning work and task is quite comprehensive, and it's comprised of about 10 different steps. And it is a process which yields in the different steps and in the process, you're building the different sections of the plan. And that's kind of what the cadence is, or what the flow of the work it is that we are doing. And those touch points that we share with you, that list of what is entailed in that process, is kind of what we're asking the question around: how ready are we? So if you look at page 60 in your workbook, if you look at page 60, you're going to see kind of these 8 steps. And this is pretty common, regardless of the type of plan you're trying to develop, and regardless of the size, how many years the organization has been in existence. These are very, very typical, very, very common. They're modified, they're customized to meet your needs, but typically these are the steps that you're going to work through. And so just to get us kind of thinking about strategic planning, go to page 58. And I want you to just kind of take a minute to determine kind of whether or not these are truths or myths as it relates to strategic planning. Are these truths or myths? And we're gonna do this together. And so I would like for you to use your handout, your worksheet here. And then we're gonna kind of look at what the responses should be. So kicking it off, the very first item, you're gonna note whether this is truth or myth. Again, we're on page 58 in your work. So the very first item is: strategic planning is systematic in that it calls for following a process that is both structured and data-based. You're going to indicate whether this is T or M. Is this a truth or a myth? And I'm just going to go silent for a minute or two and let you finish the rest of the statements. Truth or myth? I feel like we need the Jeopardy music. Is it the Jeopardy music? I think it's the Jeopardy music. That's what is that Jeopardy? I think it is. But anyway.
That is the Jeopardy music, Dr. Palmer.
Okay. I'm gonna be quiet now. I'll let you answer, please. Okay, team, if you would pop up the answer key for us. Perfect. Thank you so much. So our first item, strategic planning is systematic in that it calls for following a process that is both structured and data-based. This was a given because we started this whole conversation and our work on this topic with that statement pretty much. So it is a process. It's typically about 10 steps. Those 10 steps are customized, but typically you're going to see those steps that are on page 60. Strategic planning is a substitute for the exercise of judgment by leadership. It is a guide, and as a guide, it can change depending upon the circumstances. And so it doesn't substitute the judging of different of how to address different scenarios by our leadership, but it does serve as a guide for us. And I'll also go so far as to say, as an executive director, this really does help as it relates to what our focus should be as the ED or as the president and CEO. And it also can serve as a way to inform any type of evaluation of the organization as a whole. Number 3, strategic planning is a smooth, predictable, linear process. It is not. We have those steps that we follow, and those steps give us a method and a framework for walking through the process. But it is quite unpredictable, and there are things that we learn as we go that may very well cause us to pause. And in some cases, it may cause and prompt a lot of deliberation and discussion. And so that's important to remember. Strategic planning guides the acquisition and allocation of resources. It certainly does. Number 5, the strategic planning process is about building commitment. It is about building collective commitment in particular, because when we facilitate a strategic planning process, we oftentimes are engaging and incorporating feedback from key stakeholders. So that's definitely an element of building commitment. Number 6, strategic planning predicts the future. Doesn't predict the future. It can help us to understand by way of projections and also by way of establishing what we hope to achieve over the life of the plan, but it doesn't predict the future. Be great if it did, but it doesn't. Last item, strategic planning involves choosing specific priorities. Absolutely, it certainly does. Priorities, goal setting, outcomes are the heart of most strategic plans. And so hopefully you scored really, really well on your little quiz there in terms of what strategic planning is versus what it is not. If we could go back to gallery. So one of the things that I pointed out at the onset is on page 60, the process. So that's important to keep in mind. And then also think about kind of who will guide or who will help lead the process or who will help facilitate the process. If you look at page 61, you're going to see just a way in which you might create your strategic planning committee. I highly encourage having a strategic planning committee if you're going to walk through this formal process, because it gives the task to a group of individuals who's responsible for making sure we get through the process. Oftentimes the chair of a strategic planning committee is the board chair, and oftentimes it's either the board chair or a member of the board. And also you want to think about when you're creating the committee, once the plan is developed and you're implementing the plan, the monitoring and tracking progress. It's important to have a point person that's helping us to do that. But you can see that your committee really is customized to your liking, so if you have individuals on your board and or on your staff who have experience with strategic planning, I would highly encourage you to have them a part of this committee. Your strategic planning committee doesn't just have to be internal, meaning board staff, volunteers. You could very well have individuals from our community, if they're willing to serve, on your strategic planning committee. So you want to put that strategic planning committee in place. If you don't have that type of resource where you can build, I should say, human resources where you can build out your committee, then you want to think about a board member, a staff member that can partner and work together to do that. That could work as well. There are some choices that you're going to need to think about as you're thinking about the strategic planning process. This is page 62. I think, thought I heard someone, maybe it was Lisa, when she described Passage Home's plan, that there was a consultant involved. And so if you have the resources to bring on a consultant, that consultant will be working with the committee. So you want to, kind of think about that. Strategic planning, it can be expensive. It depends on what it is that you want to have take place in the process. Remember, the process is customized in terms of the approach that you want to take in developing your plan. Shelley, I see your hand. I'm going to come to it once I get to the end of this list. The other thing to think about as far as choices that you're going to want to make, you're going to want to think about, and I'm on page 62, you're going to want to think about how long, when do you want the strategic plan complete? When do you want it complete? And then you want to work your way back to say, we're going to start working on this at a particular time to have it finished by your deadline. I would give at least 6 months, at least, and that's really tight. That's a tight timeline. But I would give at least 6 months to walk through the process and develop the plan. And again, it depends on how you customize those steps. We talked about the committee already. We talked about who could be on the committee, who might lead the process. I'm walking down this list on page 62. Who's actually going to write the plan? Meaning, who is actually going to put the plan together, physically put it together, so that it is in whatever form you choose. Do you want hard copies? Do you want it just electronic? How do you want this plan to be put together so that it's so that you can use it? So there's that part. Also, typically in the process, there is a time for the strategic planning committee, the board, and some of the key staff to participate in a planning retreat together. Oftentimes that's built into the process. So you want to think about that. And then that last point is, will you hire an outside consultant to facilitate the process? I know there are situations where there are board members who are skilled in facilitating a strategic planning process. And if you have that resource and you're okay with them not being a participant and being the facilitator, then I think that's always an option for you too. And it may save a little bit of money. Just your, I say, kind of average grassroots organization. Maybe there's an executive director, maybe there's 1 or 2 staff. You have a real solid board. You're probably looking at about $7,500 to maybe facilitate a process. Now that number gets increases as you add, I'm going to say stuff, as you add stuff to the process. But it does cost to have this process facilitated. There's a whole lot that happens that's not obvious to the eye when it comes to putting a plan together. And so if you look at page 59, um, strategic planning should be participatory. It should be educational for all involved. Typically it is. It's very informing when board members and staff go through this process together. They're learning from each other. And they are definitely learning more about how the organization works. They're learning more about needs in the community, et cetera. There is a price tag if you decide that you want to outside consultant, and it takes time. It takes time. I think a year is a good amount of time. I know for some, they're like, oh no, we don't have a year to develop a plan, but things happen. You know, you got to have meetings, you got to get feedback, you got to check. I mean, there's just a lot of steps in there. And so realistically, if you don't want to be rushed through this, 9 months, 12 months, that's probably a good runway for that. Shelley, I'm going to come back to you for your question.
Dr. Palmer, I think you already answered it. I was just going to talk about my question was about the committee. You had said if you have a small organization, a board member, and a staff member, and I was going to ask about the staff member that you don't want that to just be the executive director and the board. It would be someone in addition to the ED and the board member, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, thank you.
It's not a bad idea to have your finance person as a part of the strategic planning committee. It's not a bad idea to have your finance person to be a part of the process. So if you wanted to add someone to this list. If I could take you to, I didn't miss another question, did I? All right, great. Page 63, readiness. Are we ready to plan? Are we ready? Is your organization ready? And if you already have a plan and it's time to do another plan, are you ready for the next plan? Right? So you want to think about readiness, and there's some things that are highlighted here. We do want you to take a minute on page 63 to complete this readiness quiz. And so you're going to note for the statements here, you're going to note whether or not the reality for your organization is a definitely, that's a 1, is a maybe not sure, that's a 2, is the 3 definitely not. So this worksheet is on page 63, and I'm going to go quiet and let you complete the readiness worksheet. Is your organization ready to engage in the strategic planning process? I'm gonna give you like another minute to finish that. All right. If you turn to page 64, we have the score sheet. So you can tally up. I know it's not even lunchtime and we're doing math, but you can tally up your scores there, and then we can determine how ready your organization is for strategic planning. So if you scored a 20 or more, your organization is ready for the strategic planning process. If you scored between 15 and 19, your organization probably would benefit from the process. And then a 14 or less, there is no urgency, but your organization should at least do strategic planning 3 years after your last strategic planning. So in terms of readiness. How did we do? Pretty good? Ready to go? Oh, 18-13. All right. Great, great, great. Great, great, great. That is good, 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 good. I see it. Okay. Was there a 20 or above in there? I haven't seen that pop up. Is there a 20 or above in there? Okay. All right, all right, all right. I see a 19. Great. Again, our hope is that once you have participated in this session, you will become more informed as to even determine readiness, right? Because you'll have a different level or degree of understanding of what's involved in that process. In your workbook, and we're about to go in a breakout here in just a couple of minutes, but there's a little bit more grounding I want us to do as it relates to preparing to plan. We talked about in terms of the committee and having a committee, but if you look on page 65, you're going to see a list of who should be involved. And what I like about this particular piece of information is that there's the role, ROLE, of who should be involved, but then there's the commitment they're making as they make the decision or as we make the decision for that person or that role to participate. And so everybody on the committee has a job to do. And so when you're thinking about building that committee, and even if the folks are not on the committee, some of the roles that are listed here can definitely inform that process. But again, what I really like about this is that you have the role, someone mentioned executive director earlier. Well, the executive director helps us to stay on track and also serves as a resource for us to be able to, in terms of what we need to build out pieces of the plan. A lot of times they know where that information is and how to find it. And so there's the executive director who's going to write the plan, the facilitator, the committee of which we've talked about, the board, staff, individuals who have participated in our program, oftentimes are queried during this process to get their feedback. And then there are other roles that are that might be able to help us in this process. So again, we haven't gotten to writing the plan yet. We're preparing to plan. We're kind of setting the stage, kind of getting geared up and thinking about what it's going to take for us to actually see this through. There's another thing to think about that we want to pop up for you, and we're going to put this in the chat. And this is documents that are useful to help inform us as we walk through those steps. And we're going to work through those steps today. But if you take a look at this particular doc here, we're going to put this in the chat for you. You don't have this in your workbook, but these are some useful documents that might be helpful. Now, you've probably heard me say this already. This is our fourth session together, right? And you've probably heard me say this before, but really and truly, this is my favorite handout. This is my favorite piece of information because there is information that we have in-house and documents that will help inform parts of the process. So there are documents that we have that are mission related. And so we've listed here what some of those documents are and information that you may already have in-house. And so we've just provided this little checklist for you to kind of identify, do you have this document versus not having this document? So there's mission-related documents. There are financial documents that might help us to understand our budget and fundraising and so on. And depending upon what we learn from these documents may very well be helpful in helping us build out parts of the plan. There are what we call administrative capacity documents. This is information that can help inform the process. And there are governance documents that might help us to inform the process. So, these are just areas where as we're building out exactly how we're going to engage or implement each of the steps on page 60, once we do that, then these documents can help inform. I want to make sure I referred you back. I think it was page 60. We want to make sure that that you're able to, yes, the steps are on page 60. These documents, this information can definitely help us inform the process. So again, start up and preparing to plan, just getting in the mindset, just really understanding what this task involves is a way in which we kind of walk us through this part of our institute. The last page I want to point out before we go in breakouts is page 67. Well, first, let's make sure did everyone get the useful documents in the chat? If you didn't, let's pause and make sure you got it. Okay. So in your workbook, you have and you can create your own. This just serves as a prompt, really. This is the work plan for strategic planning. Isn't that funny? A plan for strategic planning. Anyway, that's what it is. And so this is a way for you to kind of chart your path to actually completing, those steps on page 60. So what step are you on in terms of the activities? What processes you're going to use? Who's responsible? What part of the plan are you trying to have developed under desired outcomes? What part of the plan are you trying to have developed? What kind of resources are we going to need and how much time is it going to take? So you can create your own. This is just a prompt for you to kind of know that once you've decided you're gonna facilitate this process, let's say you're gonna take a year. Okay, well then when are these steps gonna happen over the course of that year? And I will tell you, if you decide that you are going to have an outside facilitator, like a consultant to come in, if you have a thumbnail sketch of what it is you hope to see happen over those 12 months in alignment with those steps, you're a little bit ahead of the game going into a conversation with a consultant. And so, because you want your working with a consultant to be a partnership. You don't want the consultant telling you what goes in your plan and all those kinds of things. You want to be able, you want to contribute to charting that and creating that. So in your workbook so far, we have worked through, we're just laying groundwork here, page 57 to 67, okay? And this is startup and preparing to plan. Startup and preparing to plan. And that's a lot. And we haven't even got into the meat and potatoes yet of this task. And so what we want to do at this point is we want to go into breakouts. And here is what we would like for you to discuss. We would like for you to discuss based on what we've talked about this morning, startup, preparing to plan, related to strategic planning. We want you to discuss the usefulness of the information that we've shared so far. So when you go into your breakout, you're going to be going back to pages 57 through 67, and whatever notes you've taken, and I do believe it was 2 resources that we put in the chat, and we want you to take about 10 minutes in your breakout. We want you to take about 10 minutes in your breakout to have a conversation around the usefulness of what we've shared with you so far. So from your perspective, pages 57 through 67 and all that we've discussed. Team, I'm going to hand it over to you to place everyone in breakout rooms.
Okay. We have it set for 10 minutes, and I'm going to open up all the rooms again. Like we did before, we're going to have a few EDs stay here in the main room for a bilingual breakout session. So please, if you stayed in the main room last time, just go ahead and stay put, if you will. And if anyone has any trouble getting into a room, just raise your hand, let me know, and I can pop you back in. All right. There you go.
We've shared so far. And we think that is very important as we move forward in this layered topic as it relates to strategic planning. And so it is, we're going to keep adding. We're going to keep adding to your toolbox today. And so we just wanted to take a little bit of a pause just for you to get settled into the first leg of the race, if you will, for today. I want to go into 3 more topics. I want to go into sharing about 3 more topics. The first is the needs assessment. The second is asset mapping. And the third is capacity. And so these are 3 what we consider to be kind of fundamental areas of work that will help inform what goes into your plan. And I'm going to ask you to get paper and pen ready, because I'm going to give you some notes on these 3 topics. And so I want you to be able to capture this in the note taking. And team, if we could pop up slide 15, that would be great. Slide 15. I'm going to give everybody a chance to grab pen and paper. as we talk about how these three tasks, which are built into the process, how informative it is to engage in this way. So we're going to start with needs assessment. So when we say needs assessment as a part of the strategic planning process, what we're wanting to understand is we are wanting to understand what the needs are related to our mission and vision. Okay. What are the needs that are related to our mission and vision, the purpose for which our nonprofit exists? So if our nonprofit focuses on homelessness, if our nonprofit focuses on food insecurity, if our nonprofit focuses on graduation rates, whatever, education, then when we go into doing a needs assessment, we are looking and trying to understand the needs that align with our mission and our vision and our purpose for existing. We're also wanting to understand what the needs are for our nonprofit in terms of its longevity, in terms of it still being in existence 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. In this plan, most plans are about 3 years these days. So when we're talking about needs assessment, we're talking about two different areas of need. Again, I repeat, one focuses on needs related to the cause or the issue or the focus of the work of your organization. And the other is the nonprofit as a whole. So what are our needs as an organization? And if you remember the examples that were shared, in particular Passage Home, there was a board development goal, but there was also I think it was a business development goal, and there was a goal around real estate and so on and so forth. So when we're building out the plan, oftentimes our plan will have goals that are both about meeting community needs, and then also our goals are about the nonprofit as a whole. So that's the purpose of the needs assessment. The process of conducting the needs assessment, if we decide that we're going to do that in our plan, is that we're going to either survey, focus group, or interview informants to help us to get an idea as to what the needs are based on what I described a second ago. And so we might survey folks, we might do focus groups, we might do interviews, but we're looking and querying to find out their perspective on the needs as it relates to whatever our mission and vision is. And then also from their perspective, what do they think we as an organization need to focus on? So that's the needs assessment part. Team, I think I see a question before I go to asset mapping.
Sorry, there was one that came in just as everyone was getting back. Let me pull that one up first. Sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Palmer, my question was, what is the difference between a strategic plan and a business plan?
Business plans often have environmental scans in it. They have marketability in those plans. They lean a little bit more towards some of those grounding and more fundamental aspects of how you run a corporation as opposed to how you run a nonprofit. For example, in a nonprofit, we're focusing on the needs as it aligns with our mission and vision to do social and human service work for the most part under a public charity. Most businesses are focusing on what is the profitability of our product line or our service line, or, so they're in principle, there are some similarities in terms of what we're trying to get to in the end, which is a plan, but what you study is a little bit different.
Thank you.
Dr. Palmer, there was also a question about wanting to know the difference between strategic plan and iterative planning process and if it matters.
I don't know what an iterative planning process is. What is that? So tell me what that means. What's iterative? I know what iterative means, but what does that mean in the context of planning? I don't know what that means.
Dr. Palmer, that was my question, and it really it just would probably take us off on a tangent. If it is sort of an area that has to do with changing more quickly when you have to be really adaptive, and I just think it's another theory of how to manage manage organizations during highly changing times. I don't think they're the same thing, and so I'm very happy with the topic we're on. It's just I am also hearing a lot of conversation and hearing and experience some trainings around iterative planning processes where you get those feedback loops more quickly and have a sort of a practice of changing your plan. But that's all it is. That's not even probably a very accurate description, but I'm hearing about it. It'd be interesting to hear what you guys come up with over time, if that's something you're also hearing about or talk to other organizations about.
Well, based on what you described, by default, I think you do that anyway. Like, I mean, maybe in the literature, we have some gurus that have put a name to it, but I don't think you can implement a strategic plan for a nonprofit, at least not my experience. I don't think that you can implement a plan without it organically having to pivot and having to employ some strategies to pivot. Like, I don't see that as a separate thing. I see that as a result of implementing probably most any plan. But sounds like maybe in the literature, someone has put a name to it. And I mean, there are lots of theories and conceptual frameworks out there, but I don't see how you can actually implement a plan and it not be that. You know what I mean? I mean, that just speaks to me that way. Does that help, or? Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Let's see. Moving into, let me remind you, in your workbook, when I was sharing the needs assessment and giving a description and explanation of how that works, in your workbook from pages 71, I want you to know what you have at your disposal. From page 71 to 81. I mentioned that oftentimes when we are trying to understand the needs, we are doing surveys, focus groups, interviews. What you have in that section of your workbook, that is going to inform you as to how to approach surveying, focus groups, and interviews. That's what that is. So if you want to just kind of make a little note to yourself that's where that information is. Moving on to asset mapping, page 82. So again, get your pen and your notepad ready. And if we could go to the next slide, team. Asset mapping is very, very similar to conducting a needs assessment. The difference is you're focused on assets. You're focused on resources that are available to your organization as it relates to the needs that you've identified. So if you have identified that there's a need, let's say your nonprofit focuses on educating school-age children or tutoring school-age children. Well, then in your community, if you have a public library, that's an asset. If you have mentoring for school-age children, that's an asset. So what you're doing is you're honing in on and you're querying for the assets that are in your community that will help you meet those needs. And you're looking at it from the perspective of informants. It could be teachers. It could be, if you have a local institution like college or university, you may query those individuals, people with experience, having to work with their parents that have to work with their kids to get them through the educational system and they need tutoring. You're looking for the assets that exist in your community to help you to be able to address the needs that you've identified. And so there's that community input. But then also you're looking at your nonprofit and posing the same question. What assets do we have as an organization that we can actually continue with this mission and vision that we have, or we can pursue this mission and vision that we have? And again, you might survey, you might do focus groups, you might do interviews. So needs assessment, asset mapping. Needs assessment, asset mapping. Capacity. Here's another task that's built, that can be built into this process to help inform what it is that we actually put in this plan. And team, if you could go to the next slide. So needs assessment, asset mapping, capacity assessment. So in capacity, looking at our capacity, we did this at the onset of this institute. We worked through both a basic level and an advanced level of looking at capacity around 6 management functions. And what we were doing is identifying those areas that we want to shore up, that we want to enhance over the next year. That was the task. And so going into a strategic planning process, from our perspective, as it relates to the Institute, it is just as important to assess the capacity of your nonprofit so that we are in agreement with what our strengths are as a nonprofit doing what we do, and also what our limitations are, so that we don't put in this plan unrealistic goals and unrealistic outcomes. So we're looking at assessment really in 3 different ways: needs, assets, and also capacity of our organization. And we significantly encourage assessing the capacity of nonprofits prior to strategic planning, so that we are engaging in realistic goal setting. We're engaging in realistic visioning, and we're recognizing that we might want to aspire to a particular goal and or outcome, but because of our capacity, we may not necessarily be able to take on some of those things in the plan that we're working on. And so again, these are tasks that we complete to inform us so that when we get to goal setting, we actually know and understand what our needs are, what our assets are, and also asset mapping. That's important for us to consider. I want to talk about 2 more things. We're going to go into a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do some hands-on work. Team, if you could go to the next slide, please. We're going to come back to a break. So go to the next slide. Thank you. All right. So mission and vision. Here is the long and short of it with mission and vision. When you embark upon the developing a strategic plan, it's important to do a check-in. Is the mission and vision that we have? We need to confirm it. We need to confirm that this is the mission that we want to work towards, or we want to maintain over the life of this plan, and that the vision is the vision that we want to work towards over the life of the plan. And in your workbook, if you go to we have a note-taking pages here. We have page 85 for mission and 86 for vision. And again, the long and short of it here is, do we want to make any modifications in our mission or vision? The strategic planning process is a good place to do that. Because if we're thinking that our mission and vision is a little off, or let's just say we don't have one, then we want to take the time to craft that before we go into goal setting. So that's very, very important. And I would add to your notes that revisiting your mission and your vision takes time. It's going to eat up a lot of time in that time frame that you laid out that you want to have this plan completed. Okay, so just go ahead and make notes there. I see a question. This is the first step. So this is the first step of the developing the content in the plan. So this is the first step. I hope that answered that question. This is the very first step. So the answer to your question is yes, that you should you should take the time to confirm that this is the mission and the vision that we desire. And if you want to make changes to that, I will go ahead and tell you, it will eat up time because everyone has to, let me rephrase. I don't want to say has to. There should be consensus around what your mission is and what your vision is. And sometimes if you're reworking that or revisiting that, it can foster lengthy discussion, lengthy reflection, which is all good and great and healthy to do, but it can take up quite a bit of time. So you want to confirm that mission and you want to confirm that vision. Can we go to gallery view? Wow. Whew. We've got a lot done today. So we're going to go into about a 5-minute break. And when we come back from our break, we're going to move right into goal setting. And again, the establishing goals and determining our action steps and also determining our outcomes, that is the center of the plan. Like that is the heart of the plan. And all that we just covered gets us to the mindset to be able to craft goals and outcomes that are going to be realistic and that are going to align with where we landed with the needs assessment, the asset map, and also the capacity of our nonprofit. Are we having fun yet? Yes, we're having fun. Good. All right, team, it is 11:45. And so we're going to take a 5-minute break. So at 11:50, we're going to come back and jump into goal setting. All right, welcome back to the classroom. We are going to jump right into crafting goals, action steps, and outcomes. In your workbook on page 87, here's where we want to land. We want to work through developing goals, developing action steps and outcomes, and we're going to practice writing a goal, a set of action steps, and an outcome. Okay, so we're going to practice that. And if you look over on page, I'm going to show you where the worksheet is. If you look over on page 90, nope, that's not where I want to go. I want to go to team. Can we go ahead and put up, I want to start with the samples. Go ahead and put up a sample goal for programs and a sample followed by the sample goal for a nonprofit. And class, let's turn our attention to page 87. So on page 87, when we're thinking about writing goals in the strategic plan, we are writing goals related to what we want to do over the life of this plan, okay? We're writing goals related to what we want to do over the life of the plan. And so we want those goals to be specific and we want them to be realistic and we want them to be measurable. And that's the what we want to do, WHAT. For action steps, the action steps is how, HOW, how we're going to accomplish the goals. And then our outcomes are why. And we also want our outcomes to be realistic and clear. And we want to know, what results do we want to see after we have achieved the goal. And so what we're showing on the screen, and we're also going to put in the chat for you, what we're showing on the screen are 2 examples. And so the first example is a goal specifically related to the nonprofit. Remember, we said we did an assessment of capacity. So there may be some things that we want to incorporate in this plan related to the nonprofit itself. And so the goal that we have here is that we want to create a resource for capacity building. And so that's the what. And then how we're going to get there is we're going to create a team, we're going to query the community, and we're going to onboard some organizations to participate in this resource. So that's how we're going to get it done. And then the outcome we want is we want a model. We want a permanent resource. We want this to be available in this community. And so here is our nonprofit-oriented set of goals, action steps, and outcome. So we want to do that. Then we have another example for you, which is a programs-related goal, action steps, and outcome. So for this particular goal, what WHAT, what we want to do is we want to implement the Swim for Life program. And we've given a little bit more description there, a Swim for Life program that teaches school-age children how to swim. And we want to do that by providing swimming lessons to students at this academy. That's our what. How are we going to do that? We're going to decide on a proficiency test. We're going to actually teach them how to swim. We're going to enroll folks in the program. We're going to write a grant to secure funds. These are all the hows to get to the goal. And then what ultimately are we trying to accomplish? That's our outcome. We want to report at least 75% of the students enrolled will learn to swim, that they'll do it within 6 months, and that they're going to pass a proficiency test. So we've got 2 examples of 2 different goals with a different focus. One is related to our organization as a whole, and then the other is related specifically to a program. So when you look at in your workbook, and teams, stay right here, make sure that, I know you all have already done this, you've put this in the chat. When you go to page 91, you're gonna see a worksheet that looks just like what we have here. And what we want to do now is we want you to practice crafting either a nonprofit organization-wide goal or a program-related goal, action step, outcomes. So you should have this in the chat. You should be able to access that. And we're going to let you practice this on your own. Most of your goals and your action steps and your outcomes start with action words. So on page 92, we've provided you a list of action words that you can use. So you've got the compiled example using the worksheet, 2 examples there. And you also have in your workbook the nonprofit goal kind of broken up into 3 different pages, page 88, 89, and 90. Go back, team, to the nonprofit goal here on the screen. You have this in your workbook also. It's on page 88, 89, and 90. It's just broken up into 3 different pages. So I just want you to see that you have that. You have that in your workbook. So you should be at page 91. And we want you to practice crafting your goal, your action steps, and your outcome statement. And we will go back to gallery, and we want to give you time to work on that. So I'm going to go silent. I am here in the classroom with you. We want you to practice crafting goal, action steps, and outcome. And I want to make sure, does everybody have the document that was put in the chat? Were you able to access it? Now that I'm back to gallery, I could see everyone. Okay, good. Want to make sure you got the tools that you need to do the practice. All right, I am here. I'm going to go silent, but I am here. I'm paying attention to the chat. And also, if you have a question, you can pose your question. Okay, so that's step 1, 2, and 3. Crafting the goal, crafting a set of action steps, and then crafting your outcome statement. So I'm going to add another piece to the puzzle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do and practice conducting a SWOT analysis. We're going to practice conducting a SWOT analysis. So in your workbook, I want you to go to page 94 in your work. We're going to be referencing page 94 and 95. So oftentimes when we facilitate the strategic planning process, once you have your family of goals and action steps and outcomes, what we do is we pose the question, 3 questions, 4 questions, not 3, 4 questions. What are your strengths in accomplishing this goal? What are your weaknesses related to trying to accomplish this goal? What opportunities might be presented as you're trying to pursue this goal? And 4, are there any threats that we need to take into consideration? So in front of you on your worksheet, page 91, using that worksheet, you should have crafted a goal. It could be bullet points, it could be perfect, it could be notes, whatever it is that you were able to develop. And then your action steps, how you're going to achieve the goal. And then why are you trying to implement these action steps to achieve the goal, which is the outcomes. So now you've got that in front of you. We want you to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as it relates to what you have in your worksheet collectively. So go over to page 94. Our strengths and weaknesses are listed, and we typically view those as attributes that help us achieve the goal. In terms of weaknesses, these are attributes about our organization that might be harmful to achieving the goal. And then there might be some opportunities and threats that we need to think about in terms of external conditions that might be helpful versus external conditions that might be harmful. Okay, so again, you're looking at what you crafted in your worksheet, and you're going to use the worksheet on page 95 to record your response to these. Okay, but it's related to your goals, your action steps, and your outcomes. So you're going to identify for that goal, action steps, and outcomes that you're trying to work towards. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? And notice you've got a little note at the bottom of each of the quads, each of the boxes, to kind of use as prompts as well. So we've added another piece to the puzzle. Goal, action steps, outcome, and now the SWOT. Your SWOT analysis is only going to be the degree in which your SWOT analysis is helpful, is directly impacted by your goal, your action steps, and your outcomes, right? So the more precise we are with the goals, the action steps, and the outcome, the more precise we can be in doing a SWOT analysis. So you want to spend the time on crafting collectively with all parties involved in the strategic planning process. You want to spend the time trying to nail that to the degree that you can. And then when you do the SWOT, then it is directly correlated. There's a direct correlation with the goals, the action steps, and the outcomes. I'm going to go silent, but I am here.
Dr. Palmer,
Yes.
would you say that the SWOT analysis is also a tool for helping you potentially realize if your goal needs to be revised or adjusted, or is it realistic? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't say it exactly like you said it, Janita, but I like the way you said it. Yes. So once you walk through and completed the SWOT analysis, it should definitely inform whether or not you need to make some adjustments on the side of the goal and the action steps and the outcome. Yes, absolutely.
thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So another thing to note here is that if you remember from Passage Home and also from, I think Melvin's organization is Step Up. I think I'm correct on that. If you notice when they shared their plans, they had goals and they had, let me get back to my notes. They had metrics, they had strategies, they had, they use some of the terminology a little differently, and that's by design. You can design that however you choose. And so they pulled that together differently. But the long and short of it is that if there's nothing else in that plan, you have goals and action steps and outcomes, and you have those developed. They're studying needs, assets, and capacity. I mean, that's where we land with that. So team, if we could go to slide 22. So when we're pulling it all together, we're bringing the goals and the outcomes and the action steps. We're actually putting it in the plan. We're putting it in the plan, and we are deciding what that layout is going to be. And there's typically a table of contents. And you would end up with, let's just say, if you had 10 goals in your plan, that worksheet you did with the goal, the action steps, and the outcomes, then that means you would have 10 of those in the plan, potentially. I mean, it just depends on how you want to design it. The heart of the plan, or the center of the plan, is an illustration of what it is that you crafted on page 91. 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times over, depending upon what goals and what action steps you have. And so we put that together, and we actually put it in the plan. If you go to page 96, we've given you an example of what that could look like. So you can transfer from that worksheet on page 91, you could transfer that information to a layout like this. And that layout has the goal, then it has the outcome, then it has the action steps, which is the how, and what you would add is the who and the when. Who's responsible for making sure this action step is complete, and when is this going to be completed? So we're putting it all together here. We're writing the plan, and we're putting it all together to tee up the implementation of the plan. And so this way of framing the goal, the outcome, the action steps, who's responsible and when, is just one example. There there are other ways that this can be crafted, but we filled it in for you on page 96, and on page 97, you have a blank worksheet that you can use to craft that. Okay, and so it's nice to have your goal, your outcomes, and your action steps, and the who and when. It's nice to have it on a single page, because then you can just pull that out and share it like you need to. And it's not multiple pages. I guess you could do a front and back if you wanted to, if it did extend over. And keep in mind, the strategic plan oftentimes is not in the weeds. The strategic plan, the goal and the action steps and the outcome are high level. So oftentimes there are things that we have to do to actually implement those action steps, but we don't necessarily have them in the plan. But this is a way that you can put that information together. And then the final document, the full-blown plan, the table of contents really mimics the strategic planning process. So the table of contents kind of mimics the strategic planning process. So team, if you could put a strategic plan table of contents, that would be great. The strategic plan. And so again, process is on page 60. And you'll notice that there are parts of that process that you see in the table of contents of the plan. So if you look on the screen, you'll see number 4, that's the strategic planning process, right? That's on page 60 in your workbook. Page 5 references the number 5 in the table of contents represents the needs assessment. Number 6 is asset mapping. 7, mission, vision, and if you have value statements or core values, you can include that. And then number 8 is the goals, the action steps, and outcomes. And in the plan itself, number 8 is going to be multiple pages, because you're going to more than likely have multiple goals. And then oftentimes at the end, there might be a number 9, which would be like implications of achieving everything that's in this plan. So implications of achieving everything in this plan. Oftentimes in the strategic plan, there's a number 1. There is a message from the executive director and or the board chair, and you could have as a final in the plan a message from whoever did the message at the beginning. So a lot of times the executive director is the first one, and your board chair might be the last message in the plan. But this is a way. It's not the only way. This is a way for you to pull all that together and put it in the plan. And we've put this in the chat for you so that you can access this and have it in your lives. So that's important. In your workbook, go to page 98. So writing and implementing the plan. Writing and implementing the plan, page 98. So we've talked about most of this, but the writing and implementing the plan, team, we can go back to gallery. Writing and implementing the plan, we've talked about most of this. So the design, your format, what your content is going to include, and so on and so forth. So that's an important part of that. And then when you go to your page 99, monitor and track. Monitor and track. You see goals up in the top right. We want to monitor and track our progress towards achieving our goals. We want to monitor and track any challenges that we might have. We want to monitor and track, add to your page. Let's see, goals, challenges, lessons learned. There it is. It's over on the left. Lessons learned and success. So we want to monitor and track. We want to track that. And make a note on that page for challenges. I think I said challenges a second ago. But we want to monitor and track that as well. Okay. Page 100. Page 100. Evaluate and revise. Evaluate and revise. In terms of the plan. So we have a timeline. Typically plans these days are about 3 years. So if you have a 3-year plan, you want to begin thinking about revising that plan in year 2. So you have a runway to actually do the next plan before the plan that you have expires. And then, of course, reporting out in terms of how you're doing. This can happen in staff meetings and this can happen in board meetings. Giving an update on how you're progressing. And you can determine if you want that strategic planning committee to be a part of evaluating and revising. You just have to decide how you want to do that. And then ongoingly making presentations about the plan. So, giving those updates and keeping up with how well you are proceeding with achieving what's in the plan. So that's important to do as it relates to that. Team, can we go back to slide 12? Go back to slide 12. I think this is, yeah. All right. So here we go. No, go back to the agenda one. Go all the way back to the agenda. That's where I want to go. Keep going. Yeah, back. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Right here. So here's where we started. Remember? This is where we started. And I will tell you, strategic planning, a workshop, well, in any of the topics that we cover in the Institute, you could do a whole day's workshop on these topics by design, but these are the steps that you want to keep in mind. These are the touch points that you want to keep in mind. And we've walked through these. This is different for every organization. You have to decide your path in terms of how you want to approach this and how you want to pursue this. But we have worked through strategic planning today, and thank you, team. I just wanted everybody to kind of be reminded of what it is that the work that we've done today. So if we go back to gallery, I want to do a check-in. How we doing? How we doing? Give me some reaction now. I don't want anybody fainting on me. I want you to be here next week. I don't want you to go away. So how are we doing? Give me some.
I would like to add that I like when you mentioned monitoring and tracking the lessons learned and success and challenges. I like that particularly because when different people lead the organization, they take a wealth of knowledge and lessons learned with them, but that's a way that you could have something you can reflect upon that's written down, that is accessible to others later when the people who may have been there at that particular time are no longer there to provide that input.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Anybody else? How we doing? Give me some reactions. I'm looking to see. I see some team. What are folks saying? We want y'all to come back next week. We already know that this is a wealth of information. But we want to see you now. We don't want you to tucker out. We want you to We want you to come back with us. In recent weeks, I've tried to get back on the track walking. And so Sunday, I'm trying to get up to 2 miles. I'm at 1.5 right now. And so, but when I get to that 4th lap around that track, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna make it? I got 2 more laps to go. And so we've got 2 more sessions to go. So I want to make sure, refresh yourself, get some water, make sure you're okay. Rebecca, what are folks saying? I want to make sure everybody's good.
I think folks are okay. It's a lot of information they're acknowledging, but it's good information and helpful. Lots to process. We're getting some thumbs up. Some eagerness to share with fellow board members. But yeah, overwhelmingly a lot of information. So lots of time. You'll take some time hopefully to digest it all. And I think part of strategic planning is really just, you learn by doing, right? So you take all this information, and I think we don't, what's the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. The same thing with our strategic plan. It should be a living document, and it's something that you can come back to, and you can update and make edits, but also know that you can start really small. You can start where you are. You don't have to figure it all out all at once. So if you want to do a smaller version of a strategic plan, or you want to scale things back a little bit, I think sometimes we as nonprofits think we need to do it all. But what do we sacrifice when we do it all, right? And so part of the reason why we take it back to mission, vision, values is how is your strategic plan upholding those elements as the foundation of your organization, and what your real mission is to do, right? And so if there are things in your strategic plan that don't really support that or uphold that, then they may be things that you kind of put in the parking lot and decide that may be something we talk about later, or we address later, or maybe it's just scratched altogether.
Awesome. And if no one has told you all lately, our community appreciates all your work and all that you do, whether you are on staff with a nonprofit in North Carolina, or whether you are serving on a board, whatever your capacity, or maybe you're doing multiple things, you're both. We appreciate you. We're so glad that you're doing the work that you're doing. It's definitely making a difference in our state. And team, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out. You all have a great remainder of your week.
Thanks, Dr. Palmer. Real quick question, Triangle Native American Society, I see you on here, but I don't know which of you was on the call today, if it was Mary or Dessa Lynn. If you can add to the chat your name, that would be great. And Leslie, let's go ahead and bring up our closing slide here. Obviously, we love reading your feedback. It's really helpful to us. So I'm going to pop that in the chat. If you can take just a minute or two, it shouldn't take long to add your feedback about today's session and the progress that we're making towards today's topic, and what you're taking away from today's session. On the next slide, you'll see and next week we have fundraising and financial management. We'll be joined by our CFO and head of human resources, Tracy Carriette. So it'll be Dr. Palmer and Tracy. And then let's go to the next slide. You can see some of the member benefits that are tied to today's session on strategic planning. You'll see that we have some pro bono opportunities we actually have some coaches that offer pro bono assistance to our members around strategic planning. So you can certainly, once you get this link, you can click on that if you're a member and go ahead and apply for a pro bono help in that area. You'll see we have some money saving partners that align with this as well. And then there are some publications, additional resources and information in our Information Central, which is like our online resource library for members. And as always, if you're not a member and you want to consider joining, it's a great way to have these additional resources at your fingertips. Thanks, Michael. I see your note. That's great. Michael is rejoining us for a couple sessions that he missed the past time so that he can get his certificate. And we're delighted to have you join us, Michael, again. It's great to see you pop up here. And then for MPMI Masterclass, just a quick plug for this, what's coming up. We're having this in-person event to kind of take what we learned in MPMI to sort of that next level, right? More intensive. And so we invite you to go ahead and learn more about that. I'll put this link here in the chat in case you're interested in clicking on that and learning more. It'd be a good idea to go ahead and register in the coming weeks so you can claim your spot there before we sell out on that. But we're inviting anyone who's graduated from the Institute over the past 9 sessions to join this in-person event that'll be hosted by Dr. Palmer. We're going to have some great food during the session, some great conversations, some excellent learning, and just sort of deepening and going a lot deeper on what we learned through the Institute and where we're headed with it. So we're hoping that that'll be a great in-person opportunity, that it's coming up on the 19th of November for you all to join with us. And with that, I think we're done. We'll give you just a couple minutes. As we close out, you can click on the survey for today and just look for our wraparound email. It'll come to you after today's session in your email box. Thanks, everyone. Take care. If you'd like to stay on for a couple minutes, if you have any burning questions, we'll stay on for a few minutes.